see, look at it, Anthony. How many times have I done this? This is supposed to be a show that I've done. And just now, if you're tuning into this, it took me 10 seconds to figure out how to turn on the record button. So everything's going well here. If you're watching this, yeah, it is. If you're watching this, this is The Art of Being Dar with me, Dar Dixon, and the gentleman on the other end is so interesting that I'm so honored you're here. I'm so happy you're here, Anthony. This is Anthony Martin, and Anthony lives in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And shout out to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, stopping tyranny for over 300 years now, almost 350 some odd years now.
Yep.
Right. That's all I'm going to say about that. And he runs the Urban Youth Racing School, which is, I think your minds are going to be blown in the best way. He's got an incredible story. The long and the short of it is he is a NASCAR racer, and he teaches this to young inner city children, largely Black, who never have access to this type of thing. So without any further ado, Anthony, thanks for being here, man.
Well, Dar, it's an honor to be here with you, buddy. A real honor. So thank you for having me, for sure. And as you said, I run the Urban Racing School. This is our 22nd year, Dar.
Wow.
In business. And you're absolutely correct. I actually started the racing school with the gist of introducing urban youth to this multi-billion-dollar industry. Multi-billion-dollar industry that they had no access to at all. So, and actually doing that, Dar, we've been pretty, how could I put this? Pretty successful. Not as successful as I would like to be. And the reason why I say that is only because, ultimately, I would like to have one of our kids be an actual driver in race, and by the way, not just NASCAR, in any facet of racing, whether it be IndyCar racing, which is open wheel racing, Formula One, NHRA, which is hot rod and drag racing, and NASCAR. But again, none of my students have been able to reach that plateau, that level, because of the cost that actually gets into those particular realms of racing. But as far as developing engineers, scientists, technicians, things of that nature, we've been very, very successful at actually doing that. We have been supported by General Motors Chevrolet for 20 years, which is unheard of. Incredible. As you know, as you said before, we're African-American run and owned, and that's a strong feat in itself to actually have a company of that magnitude to be supporting us like that. And one of the reasons why they're supporting us, I guess, is because of our success when it comes to education. Dar, I think that, as I said before, I would like that one of our students to be able to get to that level of racing, but it's a major cost to that. But it's not to say that we have not had students talented enough to get to that top level.
This is what I'm talking about.
We listen. We've had some students come through here, Dar, that definitely had the talent to be NASCAR drivers, IndyCar drivers, or Formula One drivers, whatever it might be. But again, it gets back to the cost.
So let me just jump in real quick on that, because that's a huge. Listen, that is where the basis of this systemic problem we have in this country around race starts. When you economically oppress any group of people, then it necessarily makes things like this hard to happen. People will be like listening to this, be thinking, well, it's a race car. Who the hell needs to do that? Well, why does anyone need to do it? And why is that the first starting point? So what is the cost? Because I'm going to guess it's a little bit more expensive to get a car up and running to compete than like buying a tennis racket or a pair of skates or something.
Okay. So excellent question. And I put it to you this way. If you're trying to get into the top level of NASCAR, for example, you're probably going to spend somewhere in the neighborhood of about $2 million, between $2 and $3 million to get to that level. Because what happens is there's different racing organizations below NASCAR, late model racing, miniature stock car racing, dirt racing, all these things that actually you have to do in order to be able to get to that top level of NASCAR. And it costs to do that. You have to have a trailer, you have to have vehicles, you have to have tools, you have to have mechanics. All these things go along with that, Dar, to be able to get to that major level. Now, one of the things that's happening today which is pretty cool, which could cut into the cost of that. Excuse me 1 second.
That's awesome. I don't know what just happened, but that's amazing.
Wait a minute.
Look like you got some wings. It looks like a virtual background kicked in.
Yeah, I don't know what this is.
Man, don't ask me. You saw me 15 seconds to figure out how to get this to start to record.
Okay. You still can see the wings.
I don't. Hang on 1 second.
Hold up.
Yeah.
My angel. I was an angel. I was an angel a couple of days ago, dog. No doubt about that. You know what I'm saying?
That story's unbelievable. You want to figure out what's going on? We can start it again.
Wait a minute.
Okay. Oh, boom! Yep. You're a master. You're back.
All right. Okay.
My man.
Gotcha.
All right.
Gotcha.
So $2 million is a little bit more than a pair of skates, hockey stick, or a tennis club. So that's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
So you're never going to compete unless you've got first of all, you got to have the talent. Talent. I don't care how much talent you have. Right.
If you don't have money backing you, whether it be in sponsorship or rich parents, it ain't going to happen.
Okay.
You could be the best driver on the planet for sure, but if you don't have the financial backing, it's not going to happen for you. And that's the difference with racing as opposed to any other sport. Okay, you have to have that financial backing. And when I started to say to you, Dar, is the fact that today you have what we call simulation racing, iRacing, which is becoming very successful. And iRacing is actually being able to cut now into that budget of dollars you would spend prior to, before to get into the series. Because there's drivers now who are going from iRacing into major racing because it's so close to the real thing.
Wow.
If you're practicing on, if you're doing the iRacing and you're practicing on racing simulators and you're constantly doing it, you will probably be successful at being able to drive real stock cars or real Indy cars, whatever it might be. So that's going to be major, and that's going to help the African-American community for kids who had the ability to be able to get there. This will give them an opportunity and a chance now, Dar, to be able to possibly do this now. Get on the simulators.
It opens up all kinds of doors.
Yes, absolutely. So, because before, years ago, you didn't have simulation racing like you have today.
No.
And there's drivers now, Dar, star drivers in NASCAR today who have come through simulators, have come through iRacing to be able to get to that top level. So that's going to help. That's really going to help for these kids who have talent in the inner cities to ultimately be able to help. I mean, there's still going to be some costs. It's definitely going to be some costs still there.
No doubt.
But the simulators will definitely help. Will knock that cost down tremendously for them to be able to get to that level if they had the talent to be able to get to that level.
So you said, that's amazing. You said something that really caught my attention. I've never considered that before, but it helps in the mathematics and the sciences, as well as obviously reading and writing, because you're going to have to write proposals to get that funding and stuff. Right. So what kind of stuff have you seen over the past, it's 23 years now you've done
22.
It's unbelievable. 22 years, and I've never heard a peep out of it ever. Not that I'm a big NASCAR fan, but it's amazing. So what kind of stuff have you seen the kids, like, have you seen them start to excel in mathematics in school, or their grades start to get better?
Absolutely. Let me give you an example. So, in one of our classes, we call the Build a Dream class. What we do is we equate racing to mathematics. For example,
I love it.
In geometry class, you learn about apex. What is an apex? Okay. Well, I got news for you. An apex is the center part of a turn. If you're learning about that, and because what happens, a lot of students go to school like, why am I taking these classes? Like, why am I taking physics? Like, when will I ever use this in my life ever? Well,
exactly.
Guess what? If you have an interest in motorsports, if you have an interest in racing, you better understand and know what an apex is. Because what happens is if you can master your apex on the racetrack or on a go-kart track, what it might be, you will probably be the fastest driver out there. Because anybody can go real fast on a straightaway, Dar. The thing is, the success of being able to get around that track is how you negotiate turns, how you get in and how you get out of a turn. Well, When you're learning about apexes, understand your apex, guess what? You will then become a really good driver. Well, now a student is learning about apexes in his geometry class. Now it's like, oh, you know what? Oh, I can now understand. I can use this now. I can use these technical terms to better myself in a potential career that I have interest in being a part of one day.
Fantastic.
So mathematic terms equate to motorsports. For example, like even what we call drafting and lift in a car, or a car being the lower a vehicle is to the ground, the faster that vehicle can go because of the air, because the air is going to go over the vehicle. Okay, so it's geometrics, metrics, and things that go along with that. So, like for example, and that's why they have rules in racing, Dar. Like for example, stock car racing, they call it stock car racing because everything has to be the same. Everybody's car has got to be the same height. The same height is from the ground up. Okay, so all these rules are part of motorsports, but again, these are all technical terms, technical rules. So again, when kids are learning math and science and technology, it becomes how can I put this? A common denominator. To understand that the fact of the matter is, like, I'm learning these classes, I'm taking these particular classes. Now they will equate to my profession and what I'm trying to do.
It brings it to life for him. Yeah,
brings it to life
excuse me.
For sure.
That's
Absolutely.
amazing. Yeah.
So we've seen that. So we've been doing it for 22 years now, Dara, and we've seen the success of kids learning these technical terms and equating them to motorsports, which then makes them do better in school. It gets them more interested in what they're actually doing, what they're actually learning to do better. Because, like for example, that's major. Because a lot of times,
yeah, that's huge. That's why I'm asking you about it.
Let me give you another example. So most urban African American kids, okay, when they graduate from high school, and if they decided they want to go to college, Dar, and major in engineering, most of them are so far behind when they get into their first year of college. It's not going to happen for them when it comes to engineering. It's important at a young age that kids start learning these technical terms and learning about geometry, learning about physics, okay, learning about calculus. These are all things that they need to have a little bit of knowledge of. So when they get into college, you know, if they have interest in being engineers, when they get into college their freshman year, they don't spend 2 years of their college career catching up to be able to take engineering courses. And then by that time, 90% of them are like, hey, wait a minute, I'm not going to be in college for 6-7 years. I'm not doing it. Then they go into another field. So that early learning technology and learning sciences and things at an early age, learning all these different things are vitally important for students who want to become engineers or scientists or whatever it might be when they get to college. Because
so
that's what happens.
Even if like it's just, you know, like a child, you try everything, you know, as a young person. So even if they get into it and they're like interested in the art of it, like the beauty of the lines of the car and the speed and the sound, all that creative kind of stuff, the sciences still kind of seep in, and then that translates over into life, right? It's interesting, man. And it brings everything to life for them because it's real, you know, it's fast. Everyone has to deal with a car of some kind in their life.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Never thought about that.
So that's why we've been successful with over 7,500 students over our 22-year period, Dar, where most of our students, I'm gonna say about 62% of them are college graduates, 95% are high school graduates for sure. And when they get finished with our program, they're going to get their high school diplomas for sure. You know, for sure.
Bravo, man. Bravo. That's impressive.
Yeah, but it's so Dar. So at the end of the day, one of the things we would like to do is we would like to expand our program nationally. See, what the kids are learning here in the Philadelphia area, you know, we believe that students throughout the country should get the same opportunity to be a part of this, for sure. And that's one of the reasons why we're pushing so hard for expansion of our programs in other cities like LA, for example, you know, Houston, you know, Chicago, Detroit, you know, New York, places like that have the same type of problems when it comes to, high school dropout rates and, students not really having interest in learning the science and things of that nature. Same problem that they have here in Philadelphia.
I'll tell you, what I like about this whole thing is you've made it work, and you've made it work successfully for 22 years in Philadelphia. So it's a proven model.
Absolutely.
So literally anyone can come up and imitate that if they learn how to do it from you, right? And you put that around, and look, you always constantly hear about schooling. I don't have children. My wife and I don't have children, but I know you've got kids. All my friends have kids, and I listen to the problems about school. And granted, right now we're in a pandemic, but they're not getting taught well. And it's like for example, for myself, like you're talking about, kids are like, man, what do I have to learn about an apex for? What that? Man, come on, right?
Right.
So similarly, I would sit in school and I would listen to history, and I'd just be like, God, it's like just dry, dusty, boring. Joe shot a rifle. The other guy died. Joe's side wins. Yay, whatever. And then as I gotten older, I actually really enjoy history. And by learning and studying history, you see what's going on now. So if this works, I say all that to say, if this works, that you bring in the Urban Youth Racing School into LA, Chicago, Miami, Denver, you name it, New York City, and it has the same effect there in the school system that it has in Philadelphia, I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't know if you can talk about this. We talked about this privately off camera, but you're in negotiations with some people to try to create a program out of this beyond just that. I don't know if you can talk about that now. If you'd rather not, we don't have to, but I love that. I love the concept. I love the whole idea,
So basically, again, expansion for us is vitally important. And so as you know, we have curriculum here. So our curriculum, basically what we will do is we want to expand that curriculum into other marketplaces. Because as you said, if it's successful here in Philadelphia, it will be successful in Los Angeles or Chicago. Because we're dealing with urban inner city kids. They go through the same problems, the same things as they do the entire country. There's no difference, for sure. So
that's right.
So we're in talks right now with different organizations right now about expanding. But hey, Dar, as you want to make sure you have the right people in place. Because listen, you ain't getting rich in this business, brother. if you trying to get rich, this is not the right business. You need to go into something else. You know what I'm saying? For sure. So you have to be committed to the betterment of these kids, and these kids getting a good education and learning about the sciences and technology. That's what it's about, Dar. If you think this is about making a whole pile of money in your pocket and everything, you're in the wrong business, brother. It's not going to happen with this. Okay.
Yeah, true.
So for us, it takes commitment, and and we want to make sure that we continue to. Because when it comes to our brand, Dar, as you know, when it comes to your brand, we want to make sure that your brand is being represented correctly and successfully, things like that. So so it's not an easy task, brother, in doing this.
No.
Because I'm listen, hey, Dar, I would have to depend on you. I would say, Dar, hey, you don't need good people in LA? You know what I'm saying? that can handle this. Because I'm in Philadelphia, you know what I'm saying? So I know that I'm here in Philadelphia. So I know it's myself and my team and the whole nine, and we're committed and we care. But when I go to LA or Chicago, whatever it might be, listen, brother, I got to make sure that they feel kind of like, maybe not the same exact way I feel, but feel, confident and feel good about doing it. So
they have to be committed to it.
They have to be committed. Again, they have to be committed to doing it. And that's not easy, but that's not an easy thing, man. So,
no, it's not. It never is. No, I'm saying franchise because there was no other word that jumped to my head. Franchising, that's tough enough, but you really can't franchise something like this. You got to have intense passion. Just to be a franchisee for Subway or McDonald's or whatever, the only commitment you really have is to, how much money can I make?
Exactly.
But this is a whole different thing. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
That's my whole point. That's my whole point. So
yeah, you can't be money motivated
correct.
by it. Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So 22 years in Philly, you are affecting the educational system there. Obviously, you've been supported by GM for 20 years, which that's incredible.
Right.
That really is. That speaks to the integrity and the quality of what you're doing. And you're ready to start branching this out a little bit more. Now, you just did recently, like was about a month ago, a little over a month ago, you did a stint, a little bit on CBS Morning, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
and that's where I saw you, found out
Yes,
about
sir.
that.
Yes, sir.
Maybe you can tap into that and let people know what you talked about there, why CBS was interested. I think it's interesting, this kind of stuff here. It's excitement. It brings energy to the whole thing.
Absolutely. So the reason why we were being interviewed by CBS DAR was the fact that there's a driver by the name of Kyle Larson, who's a NASCAR driver, who's a very talented driver, who's a kid from Northern California. Okay. And 7 months ago, he was driving a simulator. He was doing iRacing because remember the pandemic was going on and they hadn't gotten back to the track yet. He's racing on a simulator. He's racing. It's on television now. It's on TV, and uses the N-word, okay, to one of his spotters, okay. Use the N-word, and everyone heard it, okay. So once that happened, within 24 hours, companies started dropping him. So he was fired by Credit One. Chip Ganassi Racing fired him. Chevrolet fired him. NASCAR suspended him indefinitely. Once that happened, he then had to go and do some courses when it comes to learning about diversity and things of that nature, right, Dar?
Sure.
So he lost about $8.5 to $8.6 million in 24 hours, which is major, okay, which is major, as we know.
A lot of money.
A lot of money. So but then what happened was he then had to go and take these courses, okay? NASCAR required, listen, you gotta learn about diversity. These things you have to do for us to consider bringing you back. He kind of went over and above that, Dar. And what I mean by that is the fact that what he did was he then went dark. So once this happened, he decided that he wanted to learn. He wasn't going to be out here talking, going to the media, telling everybody what he's doing. Hey, listen, I was doing this, I was doing that. No. He said, Anthony, I wanted to go dark, and I wanted to figure out, I really wanted to learn about African-American history. Why so the N-word so hurtful, things that I just didn't know, things that I just didn't really understand, because I grew up in Northern California, and he said he was a privileged white guy. That's what he said, privileged white kid, for sure. And he didn't really pay much attention to the things that were going on around him, the racial stuff, the whole nine. All he really wanted to do was race, okay? So make also he does that. He ends up going to Minneapolis, doing some things there. Then when George Floyd was killed, he ended up going to his grave site, spending time there. He ended up going to St. Louis. He met Jackie Joyner-Kersee, who's an African-American Olympian, as you know.
Sure.
He has a program. He met with her, did some things with her, talked to some other folks. But what was really cool was he spoke to my wife and I, Michelle. And because we had we were friends with him anyway before this actually went down for a couple of years, Dar. Okay. He called us up and said, hey, listen, here's what I'm doing. What do you guys think? And he was like, and I was like, listen, there were students here at the race school that was hurt by your comment. One of those students' name is Jasir Fisher. Well, last year when Kyle was here for our dinner, our anniversary dinner for our program, what we do is we have a dinner at the end of every racing session, Dar, to celebrate those kids for what they did while we were doing this session, okay?
That's great.
So he would come in for those sessions. So he came in last year for the session, sat down, talked to the kids, had dinner with them, gave away awards, the whole nine. Well, so happened 2 days after, this is on a Friday, on that Sunday, he ended up racing in Dover, Delaware.
Okay.
One of our students actually ended up going down to the race. He ended up winning the race. He won the race in Dover. Okay. That student, Jasir, went to the race. He ended up bringing that kid into the winner's circle with him. The kid got a full experience of what it feels like to be the winner of a NASCAR race, which goes a long way, Dar, as you know, like goes a long way.
Sure. Wow.
So now all of a sudden, this kid is a big fan, like really a big fan of Kyle's, you know, goes, wins the race. They ended
100%.
up exchanging texts, you know what I'm saying,
Right.
becoming friendly.
Wow.
So when he ended up using the N-word, that same student was very hurt and disappointed by that comment. Right. So what Kyle said was, listen, I want to come to Philadelphia. I don't want to do it by Zoom. I don't want to do it by conference call or any of that stuff. I want to come to Philadelphia and I want to apologize face to face to you, your wife, your staff, the kid Jasir, and his parents. He comes to the school, Dar. We sat in here in my office. He apologized. And my wife, Michelle Martin, gave him a 400-year history lesson in 2 hours. And hey, Dar, a 400-year history lesson in 2 hours. And he stood here, and it's funny, I wanted to see his reaction to it because I was sitting right next to him, and the kid was sitting on the side of him. And as my wife was going through this with him, I'm like, boy, is he going to get up and walk out of here?
Exactly.
Because this is going on for all. This is like, and as you know, Dar, it was in different tones. It wasn't in a just calm, cool tone.
That's why I'm laughing.
It became there was some emotions in that that conversation. Okay?
Exactly. Few emotions come up.
There was some emotions there. Okay.
Oh yeah.
In that 2 hour span, they went high and they went low. You know, for sure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Listen to it. Apologize to Jasir. Jasir asked him straightforward, why did you say it? Why did you say it?
Oh, wow. How old is Jasir?
Jasir is 19 now.
Right.
19 years old now. He's in his
first
year of college. He was 18. First year of college. Right?
Okay.
So, asked him that question, and he answered the question, you know, as to why he used the N-word. Okay.
Okay.
Sat there and listened the whole nine. He was quiet the entire time. So it was really a learning experience for him, Dar. And he kept saying that he wanted to learn. He wanted to just sit back and open his ears to advice, everything that was happening, learning about Black history, something he had never really done before, the whole nine. So he wanted to do it. So he ended up doing it.
Good on him, man, because that's not an easy conversation here. You're right.
That's my whole, Dar, that's my whole point. It's not an easy conversation.
I sat through, we talked about this off camera before, but, you know, I told you, I got that 400-year history, and it took a little longer than 2 hours. So that's why I started laughing. And you said there's some emotions. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's a lot. It's a lot, you know, and white privilege, you know, he's talking about all he wants to do is race. And it's like, brother, I need you to hear what you just said, you know. So absolutely, kudos to you, Kyle. Good for you. Now this. So
Dar, so real fast. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I wanted to mention something else to you. So after he did that, right? A few months later, the Associated Press reached out to him, and he finally spoke about it for the first time in the media about what happened, right? Associated Press does an article on him. Associated Press calls me. Okay. They asked me, they say, Anthony, do you think that Kyle is serious? Do you think that he's sincere in his apology?
Right, exactly.
Do you think that he's a racist? And I answered the question, Dar, and I said, absolutely not. I do not think he's a racist, right? And this is because of my dealings with him, me knowing him for a few years, the whole nine, right? Dar, when I tell you that I got pushback from folks.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I got from some celebrities. I don't want to say their names.
Okay.
I got pushback. And the bottom line is this: I stood strong because I truly believe that he is not a racist. I truly believe that. Now, could I be
I can hear it
100%?
in your voice, man. No, I
Yeah,
hear it in your voice.
right. I mean, I just truly believe, because I got news for you. One of the things I learned, my mom used to always say to me, Dar, when I was growing up, my mom used to always say to me, actions speak a hell of a lot louder than words do, brother.
There you go. There you go. The most telling part of your story, what you're telling about what Kyle did, was that I don't know who did it, but ultimately it was his decision, and he did what he's done since, getting caught using the N-word on a hot mic, is to go out and do all these things in the community and reach out on his own and go to certain places on his own, of his own volition, and to go dark and like really, address the issue. Because what happens frequently, and I've seen this, we've all seen it, but I pay attention to these types of things, is when someone gets caught with their pants down, metaphorically, right? There's a certain clown sitting in the Oval Office currently who likes to say, "I'm the least racist person you know." Well, what does that mean? I'm the least racist. Literally acknowledging that he is in fact a flaming racist, right? So why do I say that, and why do I use that? That's the first thing that comes out. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Look, I have a black friend. Look, I like black food. Look, I listen to this music. Wrong approach. So it's encouraging to hear Kyle's done that. And I can see it in your eyes and hear it in your voice. And, we talked about it before. And, I'm naturally always skeptical about it. And I'm hopeful always, but I'm always naturally skeptical because I've been disappointed more often than I have not been disappointed when it comes to, white people and their white privilege and their racism. So
awesome. Now, Dar,
I think that's great.
So to answer your original question you asked me, why were we on CBS? Fast forward into being on CBS, right? So we were on CBS because Kyle had to, when NASCAR won it, was they wanted him to apologize publicly by television now, not by print media, but by television.
Sure.
So what happened was James J.B. Brown from CBS, who's a very good friend of mine, had actually introduced JB to Kyle Larson a few months, prior to this interview. And okay. JB talked to him, and they became comfortable with each other.
Okay.
So when we decided to do this CBS the Gayle King show, JB decided, hey, listen, I want to be the one that interviews him, because I truly believe that he's sincere. But the bottom line is he's going to have to show the world that he's sincere. So the reason why my wife, Michelle, and I were on that show is because they wanted to hear what our feelings were about what had happened. And as I mentioned to you before, Dar, was kind of like what you said to me. In fact, the first time I met you, what you said to me was basically the same thing. My wife said to him, is he sorry because he got caught? What you said, or is he sorry because he's truly sorry? So at the end of the day,
big difference.
Absolutely. So so my wife and I kind of talked about that, for sure, and just stood steadfast in a situation like, yeah, you know what, he's not a racist, he's a good kid, he's a good person, and I keep saying kid. I'm using the wrong analogy. Good young man, because he's 28 years old with kids. Okay. So he's a good. I
do the same thing, man.
right, exactly. But he's a good young man. And Dar, the reason why I truly believe him is not because, and it's funny, you and I joked in the beginning before we started the show about these simulators, about him buying these simulators. And it's not just because he bought 2 simulators for the racing school, but the bottom line is I see us doing things and a lot more things, accomplishing a lot more for the racing school together.
That's what I feel when you tell me all this. I'm like, man, Kyle may have really turned a corner in his life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Dar, and it's like, hey, listen, and he talks about it. So he got reinstated back into NASCAR.
All right.
He just signed with Rick Hendrick with the Hendrick Racing Team.
Okay.
So which is one of the top team in NASCAR.
Wow.
So it ended up working out great for Kyle, for sure.
Right.
So now, it's a situation where, again, the sky is the limit for him. But as you said before, Dar, there's a lot of eyes watching.
That's right.
There's a whole lot of eyes watching for sure. but I truly believe that he's going to be fine. You know, I think that Kyle, again,
he's done the right things,
fine.
man. I'm telling you. Yeah, you know, I told you, you know, being you know, married into the Abernathy family, and
Yes.
there's a certain, you know, there's a certain responsibility that comes along with it to me. So like, and I told you, I'm like, look, if I'm the white guy and I'm not talking like this, who's going to?
Right. That's right.
Not the most comfortable position to be in. You get just a tiny bit of blowback from people with white skin.
Right.
But that's okay. I understand it. I knew what I was getting into. I feel strongly about it. Before, then I got schooled and I felt really badly about everything. And like that learning experience, it sounds like that's what Kyle's doing. And so I did the similar thing. And here I am again, right? Doing this. So far, I just thought about it. Like the majority of my guests, I think, have been people of color on the show.
Right.
Didn't even think about that. Right. When does that happen? It rarely happens.
Right.
But the point is, it sounds like things are going to go in a really positive direction with Kyle. And that is exciting because, you know, I always hold this belief, and this comes from that incredible book that it's really old and kind of outdated language, Think and Grow Rich. But the guy who wrote it was Napoleon Hill. He says, you know, out of every adversity or every challenge or every bad thing that happens to you, inside of that is the seed of something of an equal or a greater benefit or a good.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so that's what's happening here. That's what I hear and see happening here.
Yes.
It's awesome.
So, hey, Dar, so it's funny. So next season, 2021, you know, when he races in California, you know, you and I'm gonna come out and you and I will go and I will introduce you to Mr. Larson.
Where's the race going to be held?
So what is it? The California Speedway?
Right.
Yeah, California Speedway.
Pomona, right? Pomona.
Yeah, I think it's Pomona. Yep, I think it is. Okay. Yeah, I think it is.
So quick side note. Yes. Pomona is right next door to Claremont. Close, very close.
Okay.
And when we escaped the Iranian Revolution, I was 15 years old, and I was going to go to boarding school out there. So yes, I know exactly where it is. I haven't thought about that since I was 15.
Wow.
Interesting. Yeah, it was the Webb School for Boys.
Oh, okay.
Does that not sound like a reformatory, like you're just going to get abused while you're there?
Right. Yeah. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Yeah, it was a beautiful campus, great school, great education. I'm just having a laugh. But I know where that is. Pomona, right on. I'd love to do that.
So so listen, I mean, you'll get a chance to, you know, we'll do that.
Cool.
You know, absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. I love it. So let me ask you this. What if you had, you know, I didn't get to ask you, kind of dove into this, but how did you get involved and interested in this? Because you didn't sound like you drive. Do you drive?
No.
You don't race.
For fun. For fun, I'm like you, Dar, for fun, but not professionally. But to answer your question, how I got into this is I grew up in Southwest Philadelphia, pretty rough neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
You know, in the hood, the whole nine.
Oh yeah.
And I was always I always liked racing. I always thought racing was very sexy. I mean, obviously I like, you know, football and base. I played basketball and baseball in high school and things like that. I was a pretty good athlete and everything, but I always liked racing. And I kind of like racing on the down low, Dar. Like my buddies that I would hang out with, they didn't know I liked racing because
this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, is that they didn't really know because it wasn't the thing to talk about in the hood. I put it to you this way.
Exactly.
You know, other than the fact that maybe your uncle or your brother-in-law drag race, you know, he had a Chevelle or something like that. He went down and he illegally drag raced or something like that. But
took his muscle car down and
exactly.
Right.
But as far as circle track racing and things like that, or IndyCar racing, I just thought that type of racing was always very sexy. So for me, because I always liked racing and things, I came from the sports marketing side.
Okay.
So I used to do a little bit of work for Charles Barkley. I used to work for a company called Professional Sports Planning, representing a bunch of athletes. I was a gentleman. I don't know if I'm sure you probably don't know this, but I was a gentleman who designed these shoelaces, these gold tip shoelaces that were worn by Randall Cunningham, who was one of the star quarterbacks for the Eagles back in the early 90s.
Do you not see the white in this beard, brother? Well, I mean, come on. I know Randall Cunningham with the gold tip shoelaces.
Gotcha. So it became, so he talked about them on ESPN and all that stuff, and it became very, very, very popular. So I was the guy who designed that. So I was a
Gold
sports.
tip
I was a
shoelaces.
yes. I was a sports guy. Okay, and I was doing these things, but and fast forward to 1998. Okay, is when I left the sports marketing business, and I met a gentleman by the name of Ed Renzi. Now, Ed Renzi was a white gentleman who was the president and CEO of the McDonald's Corporation. Okay.
Okay.
So happened he was just ready to retire, and he had started a NASCAR team. Okay. A racing team. He had a couple of racing teams, and I went to him with the idea of introducing Black kids to this industry because I dreamed about it when I was a kid, Dar. I fantasized about it when I was a kid. So my thing is, you know what? I would love to be able to, introduce these kids to this industry. So Ed Renzi loved the concept. He was like, you know what? I'm leaving a $40 billion business. I'm retiring. I have my racing teams, but I understand where you're going with this. Okay. So he gave me my initial investment into start the racing school. But
Amazing.
then what he did was for me then was he then introduced me to folks, to the leaders of NASCAR. So when I met the leaders of NASCAR, that's how I ended up meeting the leaders of General Motors. And General Motors, Chevrolet, has been working with me since I first met them, which was 20 years ago, Dar. So that's how I ended up getting, actually starting the racing school, because racing was always a dream of mine as a kid growing up.
But it was just kept on in the back, like
it was kept on the back because it wasn't.
Right.
It just wasn't something you did, or really talked about. Because all my buddies growing up were NBA fans and football fans, and what do
you think would have happened? What do you think would have happened if you had just one person encouraging you? That maybe you were just like you weren't like really friends, you were acquaintances, but they're always like, "Hey, Anthony, man, hey, you want to go down to the Poconos Speedway, right?"
Absolutely.
Like,
so
what do you think would have happened?
Shoot, I think I would have been trying to be a driver, to be honest with you. I think I would have put forth the effort to look into what it takes to be, to try to get into the industry. But I'm pretty sure, Dar, being honest with you, that I would not have made it because I didn't have the wealthy parents behind me to put me in a different racing series that I would have needed to go through in order to be able to get to that top level. Okay?
It really does require some financial backing.
Listen, you are not getting there. You could be the most talented driver on the planet. Let me give you an example. Lewis Hamilton.
Congrats to Lewis, just won. Again.
Exactly. So great, probably gonna go down as the greatest driver ever, African American from England, right? He tells a story that when he was 12 years old, McLaren gave them put $1 million, backed him with $1 million. Had McLaren not come in and backed him, even though he was the most talented driver in England at the time,
never would have heard of him, right?
It would have never happened. But he got that financial backing at the age of 12 years old. Now he's the greatest driver ever. And then on top of that, his father, before he got to get the money from McLaren, worked 2 or 3 jobs. Worked 2 or 3 jobs. Spending money on backing his son to being able to get him to the point where a McLaren would come in and say, hey, you know what? We're going to help you. We see your talent, but it costs money for him to get to the point of being, to 12 years old, to where people have seen his talent already, Dar. Now, all of a sudden, here we go. Your dad did everything he could to help you. He helped you get to a certain point, but then McLaren and them came in and took you to the next point. Right. And if his dad didn't have that, then it probably wouldn't have happened for him. Right. But his dad worked 3 jobs to support his son's dream. and understood that his son had the talent to become a driver. So he saw the talent that he,
Right.
and this is something that he sacrificed. And that's another thing too, Dar, we didn't talk about. And in any industry that you're trying to be successful at, they require sacrifice. And people and kids have to understand that. They don't really get that a Michael Jordan, a LeBron, whoever it might be, you can best believe when you were out partying, going to the parties, they were probably in their backyard shooting baskets, or the gym shooting baskets, or whatever it might be, sacrificing to get to that level. And racing is no different. So there's sacrifice, to be able to get to that top level. So there's a lot of things that goes along with that. So obviously you got to have a financial backing, but you have to be willing to make that sacrifice also to be able to get to that level, or to the top level. And not racing, as I said, but that's in anything, to be honest.
That's in running your business.
Absolutely.
That's
sacrifice.
Right. That's right.
What you're doing, sacrifice. I mean,
tons of sacrifice.
You have to. So
yeah, you really do, and you do need a strong support system, and you do need the financing. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not going to start talking out of turn, but my mind's working, because if it's about finances, it's not always about that, but
well, in motorsport, Dar, in motorsport,
you got to have it for that. Yeah, well,
right,
for a $2 million vehicle.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I said,
too many 12-year-olds
remember, there's cars, there's tools, there's transporters. You got to be able to transport your cars there. I mean, all these things that go along with supplies, and everything,
garages, the whole
thing. Right.
So let me ask you, this is incredible, and I don't want to make this too long, because we could go. You and I could blow for 2-3 hours.
Well, I could talk to you all night, man. So
yeah, likewise.
So you got to shut me down.
No. You listen. Attention, all guests of podcasts. This is how you do it. Mr. Martin right here is schooling people. What's your dream for not only racing? Well, you answered as you see fit. What's your dream in the realm of, I'm going to ask it, in the realm of NASCAR, Formula One, urban youth racing school?
So my dream would be to have my students be able to race in all those different sanctioned bodies you mentioned. But one of the things I wanted to mention to you too, Dar, my dream is to build go-kart tracks in inner cities.
Aha.
Right. And that's what I'm working on right now in the city of Philadelphia. What happens is, because Dar, think about it for a second.
Oh, I already know what you're doing. I love it.
Listen, because guess what? When you grow up in the hood, you don't have racetracks. You might have a basketball court, you might have a football field, and you might have a baseball field, but you definitely don't have a go-kart track.
No.
A place to go and practice and learn the whole nine. So my goal is to build tracks in different cities, and I'm trying to start right here in Philadelphia.
Smart.
And the city is backing me on this endeavor right now.
I love that.
We're really excited about it, and we understand that this right here, and actually doing this, will be a place for these kids to come to see what this is really about, Dar.
Yeah.
Be a part of it, and on top of that, it would be a job creator for our teenagers. Because if you go to most go-kart tracks, they have obviously older folks who run the place, but they have teenagers that are there working in go-karts and stuff like that. So this would be a job creator for students from the hood to be able to come in and work around these, around these machines, and
Smart.
And just be a part of it, to have a taste of it, the whole nine.
I love what you're doing.
So that, for me, to answer your question, that is my dream. That is my ultimate dream, and that is what's happening. But not just in Philly, but to have in other cities too, Dar, where again, where kids have access to be a part of it.
Amazing. I love that, man. I really love that concept. That's what Steve Young did. He took his computers into the art schools, the art and design schools, on purpose, got those guys hooked on it. And when they graduated, they would go to these jobs and go, are you using Apple, using Mac? So smart. So getting those out there would be amazing. What do you think is going to happen with racing as motors get eliminated from the stock of general, cars, and we're going electric? How do you think that's going to affect NASCAR and Formula One?
Well, that's an excellent point. And that's an excellent point.
Because that changes a lot, right?
Exactly. So I got news for you. These major racing sanctioning bodies are looking into that right now as we speak. For example, not 2021, but the year after that, I think it's 2022, NASCAR is going with a whole new vehicle, a different type of vehicle, everything.
Oh,
Right.
wow. Okay.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
There's already electric racing already in Europe right now. It's called e-racing. Okay. So ultimately, as engines change, as technology changes, if these racing teams or racing sanctioning bodies want to stay in business, they better be changing with the times for sure. So I think with electric engine, things like that, it's still going to be certain. They're still going to have to be serviced. They're still going to have to be worked on and things of that nature.
No doubt. No doubt. No
So
doubt.
again, to answer your question specifically, you know, I think that racing will follow the changes. You know, as engines change, as you know, as you said, mentioned, we go into electric and everything becomes electric and things like continue to go that way. I think that racing is going to adopt to that. If they don't adopt to it, will adapt. If they don't adapt to it, then they're going to be out of business.
They're going to go byway. They're going to be on the byway. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I smell a transition, not a revolution, is not the right word, but a transition, a major shakeup coming out of the urban youth racing school's effect on inner city children, Black and brown children, as they come in with their interest in technology and electronic vehicles.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
You're
a very smart man, Dar, because that's exactly how we're thinking.
Yeah,
that's exactly what we're thinking. You know, for sure. And here's another thing that's very interesting. And I know I'm talking your ears off.
Wow, I love that. No, I love that. I can't stop smiling. That's great.
Another thing that's very interesting too, Dar, since we had this racial situation going on right now.
Yes,
I've received so many calls from corporate America, different folks saying, how can they help? Now, here's the deal. So with racing, I think that, you know, the idea of really going after kids of color to be a part of the sport was something that was like, you know, if it happens, it happens, you know. But now what's interesting is people are saying in the racing industry things like, how do we get more kids of color involved in the industry? And the people say, well, have you ever heard of the Urban Racing School in Philadelphia? They've been doing it for 22 years. We saw this. And then other thing that is interesting too is the fact that STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, has become this major buzzword over the last 10 years. And the bottom line is we've been doing STEM for 22 years, Doc.
Right.
And now all of a sudden it's a major buzzword now. You're like, oh man, you know, we got to get these kids involved in STEM. You know, we got to get these kids involved. How do we get these kids involved in the industry? We've been doing it for 22 years, Dar. So now what is happening is we're becoming an organization where people are like, oh, well, these guys have been doing it over here. We got to link in with these guys over here. Well, I saw this, you know, 22 years ago. I saw the future. I saw where these kids it was going to be a situation where we were going to have to build a bridge in order to be able to get them to learn about and become a part of the industry. Because racing is like any other sport, Dar. I got news for you. You know, this country is changing now. You know, so the bottom line is you got to start catering to not just white folks. You got to start catering to everybody.
That's right.
You know, diversity, inclusion, you know, as I always said, I remember I had a conversation with one of the head guys of NASCAR. I'm not going to say his name. Back in 1999, we were talking about, you know, the sport of racing, especially NASCAR, right? And he was telling me, he says, yeah, you know, we want to, over here at NASCAR, we definitely want to diversify our sport for sure. But we're between a rock and a hard place. You know, we got our core redneck fan who spends roughly $1,000 a year on racing, whether it's traveling, whatever it might be, buying tickets to races. On average, the average fan, NASCAR fan, spend $1,000 and traveled an average of 300 miles to go to races.
Yeah.
Had all these different, numbers and the whole nine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay. And I said to him, I said, what are you guys going to do ultimately when that fan base starts to die off? Because eventually that fan base is going to start to die off. How are you guys going to react to that? And we never got a definitive answer as to why. Well, that's what happened. What happened was over the last couple of years, those same fans that were spending all this money and traveling all these miles to go to races started dying. Their kids are not as diehard fans as they were. So they're not traveling 300 miles to go to a race. They ain't spending $1,000 a year or whatever it might be on going to races, whatever it might be. They ain't watching it on television.
That's right.
Like their fathers and whoever it might be were doing.
Right.
Now you have to cater to another fan base too, to bring them in. Well, the bottom line is, if you don't have any African-American drivers in the series, who are the African-American fans going to follow?
Right.
So now you have to diversify what you're doing. And if you want to continue or if you want to stay in business or not, your business is ultimately going to die out because that fan base, the old fan bases you had, are going to continue to keep deteriorating. You got to be
100%.
For sure.
100%.
So that's why we're where we are today, where everyone understands, especially these racing sanctioning bodies, understand that we need to diversify. We need to start getting more folks involved.
I'm gonna say I agree with you 100%. And as we do in improv, yes, and I would suggest that anyone in the banking financial sector would be wise to contact either myself or Mr. Martin directly at the Urban Youth Racing School and talk about funding Mr. Martin's venture and making this a reality. Because whether you like it or not, in the banking world, you are the true criminals and you know it. And we talk about this when we're behind closed doors. Not that I'm a member of the financial world. You talk about it behind closed doors, jokingly and smilingly and laughingly. So since you can really judge a person's regret upon their actions, not their words, there's no better action I can think of than you reaching out and making this shift, not only culturally, not only racially, not only educationally, not only artistically, but altruistically, and fund something like this so this can become a reality. Because look at what Lewis Hamilton's done. It's unheard of, right? Absolutely. Look what Anthony's been doing on his own for 22 years successfully, right? And we're not complaining, we're not calling anyone out. Notice I said financial institutions. And someone will be listening to this. Do the right thing, because it's a strange new world and you're going to be all electric. And you don't know what kind of minds are sitting untapped in these communities.
That's right.
That could do incredible good for the world. Absolutely. I'm going to preach a little bit here. So you just sit back, have a drink of water. But that's what this is really about. And anyone who's been listening to this, if you haven't gotten that subtext, the undercurrent of my talking and my questions to Mr. Martin here, that's what this is about. Listen, we can all talk about Albert Einstein till the wheels come off, and Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. Those are all white men. We never hear enough about black men who were great. The Booker T. Washingtons, W.E.B. Du Bois, and on and on and on. We don't hear enough about the incident in Oklahoma City where they completely bombed the Black Wall Street, right? Mm-hmm. And that was brought to light this year for the first time, or actually last year for the first time, on HBO's Watchmen, which my friend Lou Gossett Jr. was a part of. But these things exist. And if you keep out groups of people, you're not just hurting that group of people. That's the small thinking. That's myopia. That's not the long game. The long game is you're hurting all of us, man, because you don't know where the next genius mathematician is going to come from. The next genius scientist is going to come from. The next genius actor is going to come from, the next genius motor developer.
Yep.
Alternative energy source, right?
Right.
And as you listen to Anthony, the effect is not just like, wow, it's we're going to go fast in a car. Yeah, that's the allure for you. It was sexy. The lines of the car, the sound, the smells, the whole thing. I get it. That's what draws you. And then once you get there, you're like, oh, dude, I need to step up my game. Mathematics, science, art, graphics, everything, right?
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
man. So there's a lot there. So whatever bankers are out there listening to it, whatever institution it may be, Citi, Chase, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank. See, I told you I make white people uncomfortable. Yeah. And the sooner the better, because this is a great thing.
Wells Fargo,
America.
Right.
Going on. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, man. But do the right thing. Reach out and help. It's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket to you, and you know it. And the good that will come out of it. Is, I can't even put a word on it because I can't even imagine. It's too big. It's too big. Yeah, it's really too big. Right. Listen, I want to talk to you forever, but I'm going to wrap this up here. We got to talk again because I love everything that you're doing. And I told you, I'm going to say it again here at the end, but the tagline of this podcast, art is life and life is art. And man, it's been so clearly and beautifully explained by you in your stories and the impact it's had in the academic world, in the self-esteem of that child, in the hope for that child, the encouragement, and then naturally on their creativity, because they got to start getting creative, right? Again, bankers, don't make them have to get so creative with their financing. Help a brother and a sister out. Do the right thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Anthony, man, I know I just ran my mouth for a few minutes, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. I want to do this again with you. Yes. And I want to kind of dive down deeper in each one of the things you're doing, because it's no small feat. And I'm blown away. There's a black man in Philadelphia for 22 years in the racing world at this level. And I'm only just hearing about you.
Well, Dar, thank you, sir. I really appreciate coming on to the show, and looking forward to our next talk. For sure. And
exactly.
And as I said, thank you. I really appreciate you giving me the audience to actually, be able to put out, get our word out there, talk about who we are and what we're actually doing. So, I really appreciate that, my brother, for sure.
My pleasure. Yeah, I want to say one last thing to our mutual friend, my lifelong friend, Stan Henderson out of Las Vegas, Nevada, who knows your son.
Yes.
And Stan is the one who put us in touch with each other and made this incredible connection happen. And we're gonna have some good news coming up in the next, I don't know, we'll see, 6 months or less, maybe.
Right.
Anthony and I. Anthony's like, well, I don't know what's going on, but I like it.
Absolutely. I like it too, Dar. Absolutely.
Yeah. We're gonna have some good stuff coming up. So anyway, thanks for that, Stan. Love you for that, brother, forever. Anthony, appreciate you. Keep doing you, man.
Okay. Appreciate you too, Dar. Take care of yourself. All right.
Thanks, man. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.